All right, we're back. Everyone had to keep really awkwardly asking the GM to do anything, like, could I go to the bathroom? Can I have a slice of pizza? Can I please have my dice back? Can you please untie me? They just had to kept asking over and over again. Everyone just got really uncomfortable at a certain point and left. So the GM's alone and session is canceled. Also, a couple people might need therapy. You know.
I'm gonna be honest. If my GM took my dice and didn't give them back, I'm beating your ass. We're throwing hands.
Especially if you're handcuffed.
Oh no, yeah. I am hashtag Mr. I can break these cuffs. I don't touch my dice. Hands will be thrown, dog.
What if you're handcuffed to the bed frame though?
Have you seen? Oh God, what's the movie?
Gerald's Game.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will absolutely deglove myself to kick your ass for stealing my dice.
Jesus Christ!
I will beat you with my bloody stump. I'm getting my dice back.
That game is so fucked. That movie is so fucked.
Yeah.
That's another.
It's fucked, but it has such a funny opening premise.
It does a little bit, yeah. Like, it is funny when you think about the fact that my bro just takes way too many Viagras.
He just checks out because he wasn't paying attention.
Also, side note, apparently that's another movie where the Shining cinematic universe is relevant.
Yes, I did know that, which is wild.
The lady has it, I think, right?
Yes, she shines. Yeah, both of them do. The murderer dude and her.
So that's interesting. I didn't know Stephen King had a fucking cinematic universe. By the way. Yeah. Or literature universe. Whatever.
Literary universe. Yeah. No, he does. It's odd. I know. Very odd.
Yeah. Didn't know that was a thing. But anyway, I wonder when that started. Like, did he have that plan from the beginning? I feel like he didn't.
Well, so I mean, he retroactively made a lot of it part of it. Like, there were some things after The Shining that he's like, actually, this person is shining. You're like, oh. Weird. Okay.
Isn't that the kids have their shine? Isn't that why they could beat Pennywise? Right?
Not all of them. Bill does, I think. Bill and I can't remember what her name is. The girl, Grace.
Oh, that sounds right. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, although I do like the It movies. Fun fact.
I do too. I think the new ones are the first remake is. Fucking mwah. The second one is less good, but still good.
I watched the miniseries a little bit before the remake movies came out, and I was like, oh, I actually like the remakes quite a bit. They still kept him as a spider monster, though. I still thought that was stupid.
I mean, he stays that. That's what he is in the book. So like,
I know I don't like that. I think that's dumb. I just hate it. I just will never forget. They're like, he's a mythical alien creature. You're like, sick. He's just a spider. All right, well, that's stupid. Anyway, not important. Not talking about Stephen King. This isn't a book. This is not a book club, goddammit. We don't read here. We're tabletop players. We don't know how to fucking read.
Brother, we literally read two almost 500-page rule books back to back.
There's no reading involved. You don't read when you play tabletop games. The GM just tells you how to play the game. Isn't that how it works? Right?
No.
You're supposed to back me up on this.
Is that how you've been writing? Is that how you've been running games? You just...
Yeah. I just ask people online and shit, and I figure it out. I've never looked at the Fabula playbook, the Fabula core book a day in my life.
Huh. I'm gonna go lay down.
Okay. Just take your mic with you.
Yeah.
So you can. Yeah. Okay.
I should do that one of these days. I should just record from my bed.
Just record laying down.
Yeah. I got a blue snowball. I can just fucking rewrap it around my computer and just kind of talk shit in my bed.
It's true. I mean,
do
it's
it the way Jacob does. We just records on his floor in his bathroom or something.
Yeah. Why does he do that?
My man wants to be comfortable, and I appreciate him for it.
I guess. Anyway. What the hell are we talking about? It doesn't matter. Before we say what the hell we're talking about, hit the subscribe button on your platform of choice. Now, what the hell are we talking about? We're doing a spur of the moment thing here because Isaiah suggested it and I liked it. Someone made we're stealing from Reddit, kind of, sort of, not really. I mean, we're giving our own opinions, but we're stealing the premise from Reddit, I suppose. So the idea of the original, I guess, should I just read the post? It's not long.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a Reddit post where the title said, Mother May I, does it exist? And they said, I think anyone who has spent a little bit of time in this hobby has run into accusations of their system or procedure of doing things relying on a Mother May I attitude. And I used to pay a lot of attention to this mindset and fretting over if my rulings and other decisions as a game master were falling into that category. But as I have played more and more systems, from crunchy things to story-based stuff, I think that I'm coming to the realization that it doesn't really exist in a meaningful way. There's always going to be some negotiation that happens at the table during play, no matter the system. I guess what I'm interested in hearing is what all of you think what all of you think about this supposed issue. So this person's basically saying the problem of Mother May I doesn't really exist, and everyone's sort of blowing it out of proportion and worried about something they don't need to worry about. The first obvious immediate thing we need to clarify is, what the fuck does Mother May I play mean in this context? I don't know if this is like an America only kids game thing. So like, this might have less context in other countries and stuff. I don't know. But basically, there's a game called Mother May I, and it's like one of the kids pretends to be the mom or the dad, and you have to ask them permission to do stuff. And the objective is to, like, if I remember correctly, you have to kind of wordplay the mom or the dad into like tagging them or getting to them, like they're at the other side of the room or something like that. I don't totally remember. I don't know if you remember how.
I don't think I've ever actually played the game, I'm gonna be honest.
I think I did, but I don't remember enough to like say. But if I remember correctly, it's like they're at the other side of the room and you have to kind of like finagle. You have to be like, Mother May I, Mother May I walk closer? And then they can say yay or nay. And there's like a mind game element to it, if I remember correctly. Either way, the idea is that you have to ask permission to do stuff in the game. So in the context of tabletop, a Mother May I attitude is basically constantly being like, GM, am I allowed to do this? GM, can I do this? GM, can I do that? Please, GM, like, let me do it. And it's the idea that you're always trying to do something as a character, and the GM is constantly, either the GM has established ahead of time, or you feel the need to constantly check in with the GM to let you do a thing. Do you have any other clarification to what it is?
Yeah, it's no, I mean, basically pretty much what you said. It is a incessant having to request permission to do anything, make any roll, argue for any ability. It's just using your GM as the magic pool cue or magic 8 ball
the magic
to do anything.
Conch shell.
Yeah.
May Squidward have a bite of this delicious sandwich?
No.
The conch has spoken. I love that episode.
That's cool.
So this is a slight tangent, but I'm just gonna bring it up real quick. Not even a slight tangent. This is a major tangent, but we've talked about how Lita didn't watch SpongeBob, right? I've brought that up before.
No, you have not brought that up before.
Oh, so she's never watched SpongeBob. So I constantly make SpongeBob jokes, and she will always be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And it has gotten to the point. I know. It's gotten to the point where I say a really obscure or weird joke, and she either will say, "Is that a JoJo reference or is that SpongeBob?" And it's often one of the two. So, it's a valid question. The reason I thought about that is because I brought up the conscious spoken joke, and she just looked at me like, "What the fuck are you on about?" It was very funny.
Oh my god, I fucking love that. I love that so much. Is this a JoJo reference or is that SpongeBob? is a wild fucking dichotomy you have to choose from.
It sounds like it's like a fucking game show premise.
Yeah.
Like, take this quote. Is this a SpongeBob quote or a JoJo quote? Anyway, so yes, constantly having to ask the magic conch shell to be able to do anything in your game. That's the basic idea of the Mother May I. So I hate saying the phrase OP. It always has sounded dumb to me, but OP in this case, the original poster, in case anyone doesn't know what that stands for, the original poster of Reddit, basically the person is saying, I don't think this does exist. Like, I think this is just horseshit that everybody's like stressed out about for no reason. So do we think it exists? Yes, but actually no.
Okay, yeah, we have the exact same thought. All right.
Like, yeah, but no. Yeah. I'm basically going to be, I'm going to be a solid fence sitter in this situation with the post way up my ass. I do think it exists, but I don't think it's the strict binary that a lot of people seem to think it is or want to say it is. And I also don't think it operates on a singular paradigm. And what I mean by that is that I think there's two separate tracks of the Mother May I problem. One of them is mechanical, and then one of them is like GMing style. Because you can have Mother May I shit in a mechanical sense, but you can also have it where the GM is just doing it too much or pushing it on the group. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mother May I is really a symptom of a inexperienced or railroady GM and not of a system. Like,
well, you see, you get what I mean, though, that it can also come into the mechanics too, right?
It can, yes, but like it. Basically, what the original poster said, it's sort of a nebulous thing that's part of every RPG. There is a level of consultation and conversation you need with the GM. Like, to alter your game or style of play because of this mystical Mother May I syndrome, I find foolish or misguided.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of examples of what I mean by it coming up in the mechanics themselves too. But yeah, I think the main crux is that it's just not binary, right? Like it's not like you have this behavior or you don't have this behavior. It operates on a scale, and the percentage is basically never zero because it literally can't be, but it's about how you use it, where you use it, how annoying it is. You know, there's like a tactfulness to how you got to do it. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of a GM is to be the adjudicator of the situation. Like the GM is the referee. One of your jobs, one of your listed jobs on your, I was about to say your resume, that's not the word. One of your listed responsibilities is to be a referee of some nature. So there's gonna be that Mother May I in there somewhere. Sorry, I just paused for a second. I thought I saw lightning, but maybe not. Maybe I'm going crazy. I don't know. It just completely killed my train of thought now. All right, I guess explain what I mean about the two paradigms here. So, well, maybe I'll start with the GM one first. I wrote the mechanical one first, but now maybe I'll start with the GM one first, actually. So, Mother May I win in terms of how your GM is handling the game, running things, broadly speaking. So we'll talk about this problem in regards to your GM. It's more about whether your GM gives you permission to even attempt basic fictional actions. So, you know, allows you to say, my character does X, Y, and Z, and doesn't question it because it's a given that your character could do X, Y, or Z. Like what degree of that they allow. And when you're talking about how your GM handles it, this problem can also really run in tandem with what we keep calling the roll to take a piss problem.
Yes.
Which is like, the GM will say, yeah, you can do it, but you got to make a roll for it, even though it's something really fucking stupid, like, can I open the door? And the GM's like, make an athletics check to open the door. And the door's not locked or anything, you're just opening the fucking door. And it just sort of exacerbates the problem when you tie it into the roll to take a piss issue.
Yeah, you're just having like a, okay, but why though moment.
Yeah, like, why do I need, like, is there any reason that I shouldn't immediately be able to do this? And the GM is like, no, but I want you to roll. And it's like, cool. So why are we rolling dice? It's
look,
shit gets out of hand quick.
Normalize players just telling their GM no.
Yeah, you know,
I'm kind of that mood where it's like, roll for it. No.
Yeah, listen. I've definitely, actually, I have a funny example of this. So I was playing a board game, right? It wasn't a tabletop game with a different friend who I won't name blast because I'm gonna sass him a little bit here.
Oh no.
But we were playing a board game, and it was sort of like, it was one of those board games that's like emulating the D&D dungeon crawl vibe. And part of the premise of the board game is that you move however many squares or whatever, you roll and then you move based on your roll. And you have to declare, like, if you get to like an intersection in the dungeon halls, you have to declare if you look down the hallway or not. Like, okay, I checked this hallway and then I look down this hallway, right? Mm-hmm. And I kept forgetting to say that because in my mind, I was like, obviously it's a fucking given. If my character walks forward and gets to an intersection, they're going to look down the halls of the intersection, right? Why do I have to say that? My character, who's in the premise of this board game, you're like a seasoned adventurer. The seasoned adventurer is gonna look down the fucking halls. But I, as a player, was not saying it. And he was like, oh, so you didn't say you got to look down the hallway. I was like, really? Really? We have to declare we're going to look down the hallway every fucking time we move just to waste time? And this was like, this was like our first time.
I think I know who you're talking about.
I don't know if you do know who I'm talking about. You might.
Is it Mookie's boyfriend?
No.
Okay.
No. Although I could see him maybe doing that.
Who else could it be?
Not somebody you know very well. But so like, he kept doing that where he was like, oh, well, you didn't say. I'm like, yeah, okay. First of all, we were learning the game, right? We had never played before. Like anyone except for him, no one had played before. And he was the one who was sort of like running you kind of had like a pseudo GM for this game who ran like the monsters and stuff. Mm-hmm. No one had played the game except for him. So us as players, we're trying to like learn the game as is. And it's not, things are slowed down when it's the first time you've played a game, right? So we're trying to say what we're doing. We're trying to focus on how does the game actually fucking work? And then you're bitching about, are we looking down the hallways or not? And at some point I literally said to him, I was like, stop asking me. Yes, I'm looking down. Just assume I'm looking down the hallways every fucking time because this is a stupid thing to like spend mental energy on. Do you look down the hallways? Like, yes, obviously he looks down the fucking hallways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was basically that example of like, roll to take a piss. No, fuck you. I'm taking a piss. Like it was pretty much that. And it actually, not exactly, but it is in a sense a little bit of a Mother May I situation because you have to be like, please, Mother, may I check the hallways? Like. Yeah. When really, you should just be checking the fucking hallways. And it goes back to that whole thing. It's the thing where my wizard character has 20 intelligence. I, as a real human being, don't have 20 intelligence. So, like, can we assume that my character could probably figure it out? That kind of problem?
Dude, I've had that so many times. Playing my first character, Ilias, and my GM being like, roll for that. It's like, brother. My character, with 20 intelligence, my character is one of the smartest people in this universe. Like full sail, right? If I know,
depends on setting, I would say, but yeah.
In like a medieval setting, a character who like is an engineer and knows magic and like has done all that jazz.
Right. Arguably, you're definitely top scientist. Yes.
Yeah. And I remember literally it was like, oh, I'm going to find out what direction we're in. Or no, it was, I'm going to see how much time is left in the day, right? And then you do the like finger for every 15 minutes on the sunset thing. And I was like, oh,
how that works.
What's up?
I said, I sort of know how that works.
You basically, you put you flatten your hand out in front of the sun, right? So like you're doing the like roast hand. cut that at a 90-degree angle to the sun, and then every finger is 15 minutes. And then you just put that till you hit the sunset, and that's how much time you have left before the sun falls.
I'm sure that makes sense, but you just describing that to me without showing it to me, I just was trying to move my hands and I could not make sense of what you're saying.
Fair. It's a pretty simple thing.
And then being told, not that hard, yes.
Yeah, we got to roll for it. It's like, brother, if I know how to, just tell me what the goddamn answer is. Like,
yeah, if I know how to do it in real life.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Or like that would be like you telling me like, okay, roll to use a dust bomb with Django with the sack of flour. Like, brother, yeah. I can't uncast that catapult. It's done.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So a basic to give this the two extremes of the pole here in terms of this like Mother May idea. Actually, hold on. Let me crack the other cold one real quick.
Oh boy. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. That's probably not going to come through on recording, but it might.
It came in for me, so it almost certainly will.
Oh, maybe it will. It's a cider, but anyway. So the non-permission end, as I called it, like not having to ask for permission in terms of how the GM handles the game. Any kind of simple declaration of a character action, you know, walking into a room, walking down the street, talking to an NPC, opening a fucking door, looking at the sun, like any of those kinds of things that have no role required that you generally take for granted, but the GM is never going to really question. Those are like the far opposite end of the Mother May I problem, right? You're just, the GM describes a room. You say, GM, I walk over to the desk. You don't have to ask permission. Can my character walk over to the desk? Like, given the circumstance, given the room that was just described to you, yes, you could walk over to the fucking desk. That's on the far, like, not worrying about it. On the other end of needing permission for every little thing, basically asking anytime if you're asking the GM if it is feasible to take an action, that is where you're floating into that Mother May I territory. This is generally this should come up for things that are up for debate where I'm looking at my notes and confusing myself because I think I typoed or something there. But like anytime something's up for debate and the shared circumstance of the game is not 100% agreed on. So, you know, the GM describes a wall, but doesn't say if it's a stone wall or a wooden wall or something like that. So you as the player have to be like, well, could I break the wall? And the GM's like, no, it's made of steel. And you're like, okay, well, all right. This can be used really poorly, right? This could be a bad thing in the sense that the GM's denying like a totally straightforward class ability, for example, because there's some sort of circumstance going on that they just decided but did not explain or have given, you know, hint. So if you're in some sort of like anti-magic wishy-washy zone or something, and you as the sorcerer character try to cast a spell, and the GM's like, oh, you can't, and then doesn't explain anything. And then the next round, you're like, GM, can I cast a spell this time? And you just keep doing that over and over again because of some arbitrary shit the GM decided. That's a bad way to do it. But it can also be not that big of a deal because it could be a situation of the GM tells you there's a wall in front of you, and you as a player say, can I climb the wall? And the GM's like, no, it's mossy and wet. It's too slippery for you to climb. That's not a big deal. The GM didn't necessarily declare that, so you double checked and asked. That's like a very gentle, not super aggressive Mother May I type situation.
I would go as far as say that's not a Mother May I. That's conversational, right?
Yeah, GM, it's arguably like, not one at all.
We're in mossy ruins. Okay, GM, can I climb this wall? No, it's a sheer cliff face of marble covered in moss. Then you go, oh, okay. Right, it's
yeah.
Mother May I is much like most things, is hyper dependent on context. If you are provided context, then it's not a mother may I, it's a conversation. GM, we're in a beholder's lair. I cast a spell. You try to cast a spell and it doesn't work. And even that, right? That's not saying you can't cast a spell. It's you tried, it failed. Because and once you say something like you try, it failed, then the player goes, oh, okay, there's a reason why it failed. It didn't, I can't just not do it. There's a puzzle here. There's something I have to figure out. If the GM just goes, nope, you can't do that, then it's like, well, why the fuck not?
Yeah, and then in the subsequent scenario, you have to be like, all right, can I do it now? You know? And then if you have to keep asking over and over again, and there's no clarification or anything, that's when you're starting to drift into that like shitty mother may I behavior where it's like, I have to ask you to do every little stupid fucking thing. That's when you're getting into the like unpleasant territory.
Yeah.
And I saw some people, looking through that Reddit post. Some people are saying that this is like a symptom of older school D&D where you have to constantly ask the GM, like, can I check under the bed? Can I check behind the bookshelf? Is there anything under the tile? And I kind of get what they mean, but I don't even think that's really a good example because the style of play was a little different back then where fishing around the room, as it were, was more part of the game than it is now. It wasn't how you handle the search the dungeon type behavior was different than how you do it these days. And going into the dungeon for several weeks of real life time, like several sessions of real life time, and slowly working your way through the dungeon, that was the game back in the day. That was what you expected to do. It wasn't nowadays. If you spent 8 sessions in the same dungeon, you'd be like, Jesus fucking Christ, we're still in this dungeon. But back in the day, that was more expected. And part of the reason for that was because of that slower fishing around, very carefully searching every nook and cranny type behavior. That's not even really the mother may I thing. I mean, it is to a degree, but again, it was more expected back then, so it wasn't that annoying. Nowadays, if you're like, all right, GM, I searched the room. How do you search the room? All right, can I check the bed? Can I look in the wardrobe? Is there a desk in the room? That's when you're getting into that annoying mother may I territory where you're like, GM, please, can you tell me what about this thing and what about this thing and what about this? And it's just like, we don't really do it that way anymore. The culture has shifted. The vibes have shifted. I saw some other people's too. Apparently some people use the mother may I thing as a way to talk about an individual system, like a game they don't like, and say that the game itself has an excessive mother may I attitude, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if I've ever personally felt like that about a game itself, like GM without the GM part of the equation. You know what I mean?
So right, you're describing a GM-less system where players have to ask questions of each other?
No, I think
or consult
I don't think
book.
so. I think what people are saying is some people will say that a game system has a lot of mother may I baked into the design where you constantly have to ask the GM permission to use your character abilities and stuff. And that's a reason to avoid the game. I think what they're talking about is kind of a misunderstanding of how PBTA works, for example, where they think they have to ask the GM permission to use a move, which is not actually how PBTA works, but I think some people have this misunderstanding that that's how it works. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think people have used it as a defense to just not engage with a game that they don't like. So literally to context for what I mean, the top comment on this post, the person said, I usually find it's just a derogatory way people describe games they don't like. And not liking those games is fine. They just feel like they have to belittle them into the bargain. I don't think I've played an an RPG where there's zero discussion about what might or might not be possible in the game world, even if it's just, will this approach work here? The answer is no, but something else might. I guess maybe combat encounters in something like D&D 4th edition, where that's what you spend most of your time doing. You have your set of powers. They and any in the games and any in-game conditions tell you when and how often you can use them, but it's about as light on conversation as adjudication as I can think of from what I've played. So I think what that person's getting at is that, yeah, a game where a game that people consider more rules light, which I think a lot of people call certain games rules light. Like, this is kind of its own topic, but I feel like a lot of people call games rules light that aren't actually rules light. They're just, the rules are focused on a different thing than they're used to. Like, I've heard people say Daggerheart is a rules light game, and I'm like, go play Daggerheart for literally one session. That is not a rules light game.
No, no.
Not even a little bit, dude. So I think a lot of people really misuse the term rules light.
I would say Monster Hearts is a rule light system, because there's literally not that many rules in it.
Well, Monster Hearts is a rules light system
because you need Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah, as soon as you slap Apocalypse World onto Monster Hearts, it's not a rules light system. Like, I wouldn't call Apocalypse World a rules light system.
We've actually talked about this.
Have we?
Yeah, we had I think we had a whole episode about this.
Did we? I don't remember if we did. But I would say, like, Apocalypse World, I would describe as it's sort of in the middle. Like, it's not a super crunchy system. Obviously, it's not Pathfinder, but there are a lot of rules to keep in your mind, but they're just not as numerical and mathy as a lot of people are used to. So people think it's rules light, but it's not actually. There's plenty of rules. They're just not the rules you're used to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, not really the point, but I think what the person is getting at is that some people will use this Mother May I as like a defense to say, this game is bad. It has too many Mother May I style mechanics. Which, I don't know, that's a tough one to... I'm sure everyone would have like a different answer about what they mean in that sense. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I could call it a single game that feels like a Mother May I kind of game. Because I've never thought that D&D was one of them. And that's like the gold standard that's literally why they've shifted away from a lot of the mechanics I liked.
Right. Yeah. Well, D&D, I don't think anyone would say D&D is a game that is that, but I think people have argued that D&D has a lot of those style of mechanics. I think so. Like, the example I'm thinking in my head is, if you going back to the Apocalypse World example, if the player character is getting shot at and they want to run down the hall to safety. So the player describes what their character does, and then the GM says, okay, you have to roll to act under fire, right? I think some people might be interpreting that as, Mother, may I please roll this move? That's not actually what the game is saying, right? But I think that's how people interpret it, because a lot of people misunderstand how the move structure of any kind of PBTA game is supposed to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because what the game is saying is, if a character does something that activates a move, then the move is activated. Actually, Apocalypse World is saying the complete opposite of Mother May I. Apocalypse World is saying, if this thing happens, you have to roll dice, no questions asked. That's what Apocalypse World is saying. People read it as, if this thing's happened, ask your GM if you can now roll dice. Not what it's saying.
Right.
So I really think that's what that person was talking about, where people will deride a game as having too much Mother May I type shit. I think that's what it is. I'm guessing. I'm really not 100% sure on that, but judging by what some of the other people were saying in the thread, I think that's what they're getting at. It's kind of hard to tell, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, I think
people
are being kind of wishy-washy.
Right. Well, I think it's like many things that bother me about this world. It is ill-defined. Right, like it's based on vibes, right? Because you're like, oh, well, a thing that makes you have to like request permission for your DM. Well, you're doing that no matter what, right? You go, DM, can I roll to hit? Just so you know if it's fucking possible or not. And if you have a problem with like basic conversation with your game, then yeah, you're gonna say everything's a fucking Mother May I. But
I guess the retort would be that something like an attack roll does not require GM permission in a game like D&D.
I would say it does.
I think the argument, well, we're going to get into this with the next point. I think the argument is that mechanically speaking, the game rules as written, the game does not say you need permission as long as you fulfill all the like requirements. You know what I mean?
I suppose.
So, well, so let's get into the mechanical part of this, right? So when you're talking about the Mother May I stuff in terms of mechanics, it's the idea that either the mechanic is very explicit about whether you can or cannot do what you're trying to do, or the game basically says you need permission to even try and use the mechanic. So in 5e, a basic attack, if you meet the requirements of your weapon and your general character status, which is to say like you're not unconscious, you're not stunned, you're within range, blah, 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 you can make an attack roll against the enemy, and rules as written, the GM can't tell you no, right? Like very strictly speaking. There's all sorts of stuff that can intercept that, but basic, just on paper rules as written, the GM cannot say, no, you can't make an attack roll, or no, you're not allowed to make an attack roll, because as long as you fulfill the requirements. An example of a mechanic where you literally need permission from the GM is the old way the Sorcerer's Wild Magic table used to work.
Right.
So
does that literally require you asking the GM if the thing procced?
Close. So the wording of it was that the way actually, hold on, let me pull out the exact wording, because why not? So the way it was phrased, hold on, wild. Okay. Immediately after you cast a sorcerer spell of first level or higher, the DM can have you roll a d20. So literally, and this is where I think I genuinely think this may have been what sparked this whole topic back into life. Like, I think it was a topic that was sort of dead, and this resuscitated it. When the 2024 rules were coming out, Jeremy Crawford, right? They did an episode talking about the sorcerer. Well, they did, a couple of the classes, one of them being the sorcerer. And Jeremy Crawford literally said, the Wild Magic table is a Mother May I mechanic. That's what Jeremy Crawford said verbatim, right?
Yeah.
And he said, because you have to ask your GM if you can roll that d20. So we changed it. So the way it works now is when you cast a leveled spell, you as the player can choose to roll that d20 if you want, whenever you cast a leveled spell as a sorcerer. And like I said, Jeremy Crawford explicitly called this one out. So in the new rules, you decide. In the old rules, the GM decided. So that's a scenario where mechanically, it's literally a Mother May I situation. And that's a mechanic that is designed like that, where like, please GM, can I roll on my Wild Magic table? I think is the kind of thing that people are talking about when they say that a game is mechanically designed with too much Mother May I stuff. But I do think a lot of people are probably misattributing how mechanics work and calling it a Mother May I when it isn't.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are scenarios where I do think it can happen mechanically, where the game basically tells you as a player, this mechanic only works if your GM says it works in this scenario. Like, otherwise it doesn't work. And then there's other mechanics where, like an attack roll, the game doesn't say you need permission. The game is just saying, if you meet the criteria, you can do this. And there is a fine line, because it is true that, like an attack roll, for example, you could just, your GM could be like, you try to make an attack roll, but the creature is incorporeal and your sword goes right through it, or something like that. Right? Like, there's some of that, but the way the rule is written just in the book as is not saying that you have to ask the GM for any kind of permission to do that. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about it coming into the mechanical paradigm. So there's the GM paradigm and then the mechanical paradigm. Mm-hmm. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Okay. I think another case of where I could see somebody sort of attributing it as a Mother May I mechanic situation is like in Dungeon World, monsters have special features where they're little tags that make declarations about the monster. And for example, a monster, one of them is incorporeal. And the game literally says, if a monster is incorporeal, you cannot attack it with physical weapons. So the player character, the fighter character, tries to attack the like ghost with the sword, with a sword, and the GM says, oh, you go to swing your sword and it goes right through the ghost. Someone could make the argument that, oh, I need the GM's permission to hit the ghost character. That's not actually what's happening, but if you're not understanding how the rules work, I could see how you would think that's what's happening. You know what I mean?
That goes back to again, you're not asking permission, you're testing to see what you can do. You go, okay, I shoot the ghost with my bow. The GM should, and this does provide that the GM knows what to say in a given situation, right?
Yeah,
if the GM just says,
for sure,
you can't do it, then you're like, oh, what? But if they tell you, yeah, you shoot your bow, it passes through it, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
You go,
it's about how you deliver the information too.
Yeah. And that's a huge part of the Mother May I. It's about delivery, it's about context, about information, about the conversation, really.
Well, and also I do think this is probably an issue that comes up for newer GMs more often, because there's this desire when you're GMing, when you're early on in your GMing phase. I feel like everyone goes through this, where your desire is to sorry, my cat's doing something weird. There's a desire to be a little cheeky with your information, right? Like, not give it out too freely when you're a newer GM. And sometimes that, excuse me, burping, sorry. Sometimes that desire to be cheeky turns into this weird Mother May I situation, because you're withholding so much information that the players don't actually know how to respond anymore. So now they're asking you permission to do really basic shit because they lack so much information. You know what I mean?
Truly a terrible fucking place to be.
It is a bad place to be, but I think a lot of people end up there by accident, right? I don't think it's intended, but because I think a lot of people have this idea when they start GMing that I don't know where this comes from exactly, but there's this vibe that the GM is the mysterious cloaked figure in a black, like, I almost feel like when people think of actually, no, not even, I think anytime you see someone depicted as like a game master in art, right? They always look like a Nazgul, right?
Yeah.
They have a hood, they have the robes, you can't see their face or their face is shrouded, right? Even Critical Role, when they did their very first intro, Matt Mercer as the GM, he took off a mask that was concealing his as someone else, and he's wearing black robes and he has eyeshadow on, so he looks like a mysterious wizard dude, right?
Yeah.
So there's this vibe, there's this mental image that the GM is the keeper of secrets. And so as the keeper of secrets, you can't just give away your secrets freely. The players must work for your secrets. The problem is it's a delicate balance between the players working for the secrets and you just not telling them important information that they need. Right. If the players walk into a room and there's like 4 zombies in the room, but you as the keeper of secrets just say they walk into a room and don't mention the very obvious zombies, that's not being a keeper of secrets. You're just not telling them information that they should have that is important.
You're just withholding shit.
Yeah, like they should know that. So I think that becomes the problem where a newer GM has this vibe where they're like, I'm the dungeon master. I am a mysterious cloaked figure. And then they go, why do my players keep asking me if they can do really basic shit? And it's like, well, because you were so mysterious that they don't know what they can do anymore. Like they're confused is essentially what's happened.
That was, yeah. So I have this is the thing that happened to me where, again, my character, I think I didn't have 20 wisdom, but I had very high wisdom. I took the alert feat. So my passive was crazy. It was like 20. It was over 20. I think I told this story about the fucking room with the acid and the clay golem, and I nuked the entire party because I just was tired of the encounter.
Yes. Yeah.
And like my character with crazy high passive perception somehow didn't notice a very obvious pressure plate at the top of the stairs, that thing that I would have been at eye level with at some point, and would have went,
right,
why is that tile raised? But no, I stepped on it, and you're like, what? How? What? How could I have, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and then what ends up happening is you get into a little bit of a Mother May I situation where you're like, GM, can we say that my character saw that tile? Right? That would be your next probable question.
Yeah.
Because you as a player go, well, that would make sense. So GM, can we say that that's the case? And now you're in this weird negotiation with the GM over something that feels a little silly at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's such a tightrope situation, because it is true that you will be, at the end of the day, you're always going to be in negotiation with the game master, because that's just how the game works, right? I mean, why am I freeballing this? Hold on, let me read my fucking notes that I wrote down. All games require some degree of negotiation to truly function, right? Tabletop RPGs are a shared
IGN for a second. I was like, what?
I don't know what I was trying to say there. Are a shared ephemeral mental space at the end of the day. There's no way to make sure that what everyone is imagining is exactly the same. The reason it becomes a problem is because of games or GMs that are having a little bit of a power trip in how they adjudicate play. People like the one in the Reddit post are saying it's not a problem that exists because they are thinking of it as a binary that's on or off. But really, it's about degrees of how much it gets used. You can easily abuse your GM power by overexerting the Mother May I attitude, but simply getting or giving a clarification on events is not an inherent problem. And I was calling it out from the GM standpoint, but also from the game standpoint itself. Asking a clarification on a thing in terms of how the game works itself is not inherently a problem, right? Mm-hmm. But if the game is designed in such a fashion where it basically wants you to be always checking in, like imagine, if you will, let's say you had a game where everyone is some sort of, you're playing like Mage the Ascension or something like that, where all the characters are wizards of some kind, right? Some kind of spellcasters. And you have an ability that says you can pull from the font of magic around you to cast a destructive spell. Ask your GM if there is a powerful enough source of magic around you, right? If the game does that kind of a mechanic over and over and over and over again, where it's like, ask your GM, ask your GM, ask your GM, that is like over abusing that attitude. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But if it's there for very specific mechanics or specific scenarios, or it's a mechanic that works with something else, then that's okay. A good example, actually, since we're playing Fabula Ultima, we have a character who has an ability that says if she is in sunlight, she can cast a spell freely, right? Yeah. The player is always saying to me, are we in sunlight? Now that is absolutely a Mother May I mechanic, right? You know, Mother, are we in sunlight? Can I freely cast my spell? But most of the time, the answer to that question is very obvious, so it's not a big deal, right? I specifically said it's the middle of the night. Obviously, we're not going to ask, are you in sunlight? Oh, you're in a cave. No, you're not in sunlight. Oh, you're out in the middle of the field. Yes, obviously you're in sunlight, right? Most of the time, not a big deal. Every once in a while, it's a little ambiguous, and then we see. That for a couple of, for some mechanics here and there, that's not a big deal. If the game uses that for every fucking mechanic in the game or whatever, or like every class ability has a rider like that, that's when it starts to become a problem. And there's a delicate balance. And also, I think it's important to not tie a Mother May I mechanic to a really core ability, right? Imagine, if you will, in 5e, if the fighter had to ask the GM, like maybe the fighter's action surge ability, right? If it says you can use action surge if you are emboldened by your teammates. So every single time the fighter goes to use action surge, they have to say, GM, am I currently emboldened by my teammates? That would be fucking annoying, because it's a really core ability. So you don't want to be doing that all the goddamn time. But if it's a little side ability that you use from time to time, but it's really cool when you get to use it, less of a problem. It's all about that delicate tightrope, right? That the perfectly balanced as all things should be.
Okay, Thanos.
Yeah. But you get what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah. No, I do. This is that weird thing where, like, yes, you definitely, oh no, please don't start coughing. Don't do this. I'm so good. It's where you have a better time when it's not tied to core mechanics, but I think there's even room for that. Like, people argue that the Rangers' old abilities were Mother May I's, and I don't think they were, right. Because, again, similar to the doing things during sunlight, I'm gonna know if we're in my favorite terrain. If my favorite terrain is caves, and we're in a cave,
yeah,
I'm not gonna ask. I'm just gonna assume and roll using my, and then, like, if the GM goes, are you rolling with your stuff? And I go, yeah. And if they ask me why, I go, because we're in a cave. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Or if my favorite terrain is goblinoids, and we're fighting orcs, which I believe they're humanoids, but like if we're fighting hobgoblins, I'm just gonna go, all right, I'm gonna roll it, you know?
Yeah.
Same thing with dragons. If I'm rolling against kobolds, I'm just gonna roll it.
Well, now, not before, but now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of the time it's clear and it's not a big deal. And yes, I'm not saying you can't have it on a core mechanic, but I'm saying if it's on a core mechanic, you have to be a little delicate, right? There's a little more wiggle room in terms of it becoming a bit, flavorful thing versus annoying. I mean, actually, using Fabula Ultima again, another great example is the Invoker class in Fabula Ultima. If you wanted to look at it uncharitably, the Invoker class is an entire class based around Mother May I, right? Because it requires you to be near, like, to perform your invocations, which is the class's core mechanic. You have to be near a wellspring of that element, right? So you could make the argument that entire class is Mother May I, because you constantly have to say to the GM, what elements are around me? The way that Fabula Ultima kind of weaves the tightrope with that particular mechanic is that it basically says every single area you are in should fulfill one of the invoker's elements. So it's not a question of, GM, can I use my ability? It's a question of, all right, GM, which abilities do I currently have access to, right? It is still a little bit of a Mother May I mechanic, because maybe you want to use an air spell, but there's no air element around you. Okay, so there's a little bit of a question there, but the GM is never going to say to you, there's no elements for you to take from, right? They're almost, I shouldn't say never, but most of the time, they're almost never going to say you cannot use your invocations. And that's where the game walks that little bit of a tightrope. So that is an example where, yes, it is a core mechanic with a little bit of that Mother May I element, but handled, I think, relatively well. The other way that class handles it too is that each element that you can pull from, so the, what is it? Air, fire, lightning, water. Or no, sorry, it's air, fire, earth, water, lightning, I think that's what it is. Yeah. Every single one of the elements has a couple of basic abilities that are the same amongst every element. So you might not have access to fire, so you can't cast the Geoblast ability, but you have access to earth. Or sorry, you might not have access to fire, so you can't cast the Pyroblast ability, but you have access to earth, so you can cast the Geoblast ability. It does the same thing, just with a different damage type. So even if you're cut off from the one you might have wanted, you still have access to the same basic abilities. So no matter what, you're never going to be in a position where you're useless or you just don't have access. You're going to have something. It might not be exactly what you want, but you'll have something. And basically, what Fabula is doing with the Invoker class is making a little bit of a concession and saying it's really cool and flavorful to play a Avatar style character where you're pulling from the elements around you, right? You're playing a waterbender or a firebender. That's a cool vibe. To make that vibe feel good in this game, we have to put a little bit of a Mother May I mechanic to it to make it actually hit the fantasy that you want, right? But at no point we're going to try and avoid the problem of you becoming completely useless, so you don't say to the GM, Mother May I have this element, and the GM just says, no, get fucked, right? The game avoided that problem.
Right.
It could have very easily landed there. And I think, if I remember correctly, speaking of Avatar, I think Avatar Legends also brings this up and basically says, it's been a minute, but if I remember correctly, like if you're playing a waterbender in that game and there's no water nearby, I think the game says that you can kind of assume that the players have their element on them in some capacity. So like, in Avatar, Katara used to carry water skins around, so she wouldn't have her full capabilities because there wasn't a river nearby, but she could throw out like ice knives and basic water whips because she had enough water on her person to defend herself, right? And I think the game basically says that's how you should handle it. And again, that is a little bit floating in that Mother May I territory, because if the waterbender character wants to create like a big tidal wave, but there's no river nearby, they can't do it. But the game is like, you as the GM should assume they have some access to their element on them like 95% of the time. Like it's a rare circumstance where they won't,
Well, even then, I would still say that that's not a Mother May I. Like, I think as a player, you should understand, yeah, I'm not near a body of water. I can't do the crazy octopus leg thing that fucking Katara does. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
but
I would say
I can do, like, you know, the shit you were talking about, the ice knives, the water whips, the, like,
basic whip, yeah.
The doing that fucking sick razor disc thing she does. Like,
yeah.
Stuff that's within reasonable parameters.
Yeah. The reason I say it's Mother May I is because there's a little bit of an element of you try to describe your character doing something fictionally, and the GM then goes like, well, you don't quite have enough water. Like, there's a little bit of that back and forth. So it teeters into that mechanical Mother May I asking for permission, but it's not so egregious that it's going to be a huge problem. You know what I mean?
I suppose.
It goes back to that. It goes back to what I was saying about walking that tightrope, right? As long as you're good about the tightrope, it's not a problem. If Avatar Legends said to the player, said to the players, you always have to ask your GM whether or not you have access to water or earth, right? If you're an earthbender or waterbender, every time you engage in a fight, you have to ask your GM. That would be bad, right? That would be too much. Yeah, that would because be now you're at the space where you're like, okay, I literally have to check in permission-wise. Even if logically I know there should be some earth around me, I still have to ask. That's bad. But if the game says you can assume you have a little bit of water on you, or maybe you carry those like stone discs from the pro bending matches, like maybe you have some of those in your back pocket. The game says you have something like that on you. Okay, cool. So I don't need to ask permission, but if I try to do something big, then I can check in with the GM. Like, that's where you get into that. It's weaving that delicate thread in the middle there. And again, I could see how if somebody doesn't really know the game very well, they could look at a problem like that in a game like Avatar Legends and be like, oh, I constantly have to ask my GM to do anything. That's bullshit. You know, like, I could understand why someone might get mad about that if they don't read carefully enough or don't understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not saying it's good to be, getting pissy like that, but I can understand how somebody would.
Yeah. I'll give it to you.
Like, again, that's why I keep saying it's that delicate balance, because it is flavorful, right? Like, especially when you're talking about Avatar, like the setting of Avatar, you are trying to operate within the flavor. You're trying to operate within the milieu of the setting. If a waterbender character could just create a tsunami out of thin air, you're not really hitting the vibe, right? That's going to feel weird, especially if you're a fan of the series prior to playing the game, which I would assume most people would be. That would be weird. So you have to make a degree of concession to make sure that the vibe feels right. And that's kind of now, actually, since I said that, shifting over to the D&D part of this situation, that's what the D&D Ranger was doing that they have since gotten rid of, right? The D&D Ranger vibe was, we want you to feel like you have this, like, a special enemy and a special terrain. And in order to make that vibe feel good, there's a little bit of an element of asking the GM permission, in a sense, because you might need to double check with the GM. Does this count as my terrain, or what kind of terrain are we in, right? But it is for the concession of making the mechanic cooler. 5e has kind of given up on that these days. And that sucks.
Yep.
Like, so what I wrote is 5e has essentially tried to design this problem out of the game by removing as many mechanics as possible that require any kind of heavy GM adjudication to work well. Class abilities have effectively become as declarative as they possibly can without room for any debate, or if they were too hard to fix, they've just been removed, like the Ranger's favorite terrain. Just completely removed. The example I gave, actually two from the Druid, funny enough. The Druid doesn't have the bit where it says that Druids don't wear metal armor anymore. They took that out because a lot of players would basically end up doing this weird back and forth negotiation with their GM where they're like, oh, so I can't wear scale armor, but can I say it's made of like bone armor? And then that counts for the AC bonus, right? Like, and then you have this weird Mother Mayor of like, all right, I can't wear plate mail, but Mother, may I wear giant bug chitin armor? Can that count? You know? The other example with the Druid was the way Wild Shape used to work. I think most people ignored this rule, but technically, rules as written, the way Wild Shape used to work was the Druid has to have seen the animal to turn into the animal, right? So you can't say, I turn into a whale if the character has never seen a whale. What this often ended up turning into was the Druid player asking the GM, oh, I want to turn into an elk. And then the GM's like, have you seen an elk? We haven't seen an elk in our game. And the Druid player goes, oh, well, can we say I've seen an elk in my past because I lived in the woods? And then the GM has to decide if they want to let them do that or not. That is a classic Mother May I situation, right?
That is, yeah.
Mother May I turn into an elk? Let me think about it. I guess I'll allow it. So to avoid that problem, because it seems like 5e is a little bit scared of that problem, they've just taken out any mechanic that is even remotely close to that issue. And as you pointed out, Isaiah, with the Ranger situation, things have gotten a little sauceless because of it.
Yep.
Right? Like we've gotten... I mean, we were kind of talking about this with the Artificer, the Reanimator subclass.
Right.
Because we were saying, we're like, oh, the Reanimator subclass can summon this walking corpse monster, and they don't have to ask for any kind of permission for the GM, but it feels really weird because rules as written, they can just make a little zombie guy poof into existence out of thin air. You know? Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't say that, oh, you have to collect bodies or get pieces or buy components. It doesn't say any of that. And the reason they did that, I think, is because they want to avoid the situation where the Artificer character has to say to the GM, Mother may I say that I'm carrying around pieces of a corpse to summon my reanimated guy? And then the GM has to decide, right? So it did avoid that problem, but it does mean that the Reanimator feels just a little less flavorful than it could.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could think of any other examples, but like, I feel like there's quite a few of those floating around in 5e.
I mean, the biggest one for me is the, revised Divine Intervention.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. It
just had such good sauce, and you had to was it a Mother May I? Yeah, but it was a fucking cool one.
It was,
and
yeah.
The cool thing about that is that the way by which a thing happened was up to the GM, but you always got what you asked for.
Right.
And it wasn't like a monkey's paw thing like most GMs run Wish as, which is fucking annoying, by the way. It was literally like, GM, you're like, I ask my god to save us, to help me restore my allies to their health. You would hope that Lathander isn't being a dick with a fucked up sense of humor today. And if he is, again, just look at your GM and be like, no, that's dumb. Why are you doing that? Look, I stand by it. We're going to put that on a shirt. It's just going to be, just say no. Like,
just say no to your GM.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry. I've been a GM for better part of half a decade. I have done this as a player. I've just told my GM no. Now, granted, you as a player, you shouldn't do it willy-nilly. You shouldn't just fucking be like, nope, not doing that. There is a level that you need to, like, give it up to the GM because they're doing so much work for this game to even happen. But if they do something that clearly contradicts, and perfect example. Way back, we were in a session with Ant. It was me, Brett, Ant, and our crew from the first campaign. And some ooky spooky shit happened, and the GM was like, Acel, which is Ant's character, he was like, roll wisdom, randomly. And it was like, why? It's like, to see if you piss yourself. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. And that was like the end of the conversation. Yeah.
To see if you piss yourself?
Yeah, to see if you piss your pants out of fear. And he just like, nope, not doing that.
Why?
I don't know.
What?
I talked to him about like that. I talk about that campaign a lot, and he's like, brother, please, I'm begging you, don't make me relive it, please. I'm like, what, bud? You don't want to relive your GM past? He's like, no, quite frankly, I fucking do not.
He's aware he fucked up.
Yeah, no, look, I give him shit for it whenever we talk. It's so fun.
I mean, it's better to be, yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's lighthearted ribbing. I'm not like, your shit, you know that, right? I'm like, remember this thing? And I just hear him groan.
Well, it's better to acknowledge it now and learn from it than just completely ignore it, right? So
yeah, of course. I feel like a lot of GM horror stories would just not happen if players were like, no. It's like, yes, the orcs prepare to do the bad thing, and you're like, no.
Yeah. I mean, I think for sure that would deter some people. For sure. Yeah. Fuck. Damn it. Train of thought. God damn it. What was I gonna say? 5e.
Actually, hold on. I got a question for you.
Okay.
About the wish spell, because that is the biggest Mother May I, straight up in the game.
Because 5e it is
95% played as a monkey's paw, which it very specifically in the rules says is not the case, but depending on the ridiculousness of the spell, it could be. Yeah,
it's a little bit of a gray area on how much of a monkey's paw it is, for sure.
And like, I'm not gonna lie, if you give your players the luck blade or whatever, or like access to a djinn, and this has happened in a game I was in, where one of the wishes got instantly monkey's pawed, and we're like, okay, we're never going to use this item again. We're just not going to do it. And the GM was like, well, you guys are in a tough spot. You could use the thing. And we're like, no.
Yep.
Because why would we?
Yep.
Because I remember, God, I don't even remember what game. I think it was a one shot or something. It was like a midi campaign.
Wait, what was the question though? Wait a minute.
Oh, just like, what do you think about it? Like, do you think the amount that it's monkey's paw is bullshit? Do you like just general thoughts on the wish spell in terms of it being a Mother May I? And why do you think it is so much?
I think it definitely is a Mother May I mechanic. I think the reason it is because if you want to get a really cool effect like that, you have to have some agreement with your GM for the cool effect to work. You know, like you can't expect to have something as crazy as the wish spell without a little bit of a negotiation back and forth. So there has to be that permission asking element, because at the end of the day, if there wasn't that element of the Mother May I to it, then players could just turn the campaign off at any moment. And sure, in the moment, that sounds like a really fun idea. Like, I just made the campaign stop. But you know what happens after that, bud? Cool, you don't get to play fucking D&D anymore, bud. good job.
No, true.
Like the game's over.
So,
you know.
Here's the thing. Yes.
So there has to be an element of asking that permission. You can't avoid
absolutely does. And like, I'm not saying that the wish spell should be free. You know, free 99. Just do whatever you want. But I take umbrage with the amount that the wish spell is used to fuck people over, despite how rare it is and how difficult it is to get access to.
I think that is another symptom of unconfident or unexperienced GMs panicking a little bit and going straight for the monkey's paw answer because they don't see it. They feel like they've been backed into a corner and their only way out is the monkey's paw answer. You know what I mean?
No, see, I disagree with you because I know several GMs who hand the wish spell out and they're like, you gonna use it? You gonna do it? Because they enjoy the like watching the players struggle for 30 real-time minutes as they try to construct the perfect argument for their wish. Which is so fucking annoying.
Okay. If you're explicitly handing the players the wish spell to then monkey's paw it on purpose, that's a dick move. Like, that's unnecessary. Because in that scenario, just don't give them the fucking wish spell. Like, that's just being mean a little bit, because if you're doing that, essentially what you're saying is like, here's this nice toy. It's going to be a real shame when I take it away from you. You know, like,
or take your other toys away for even looking at this toy.
Yeah, it'd be like. All right, should I do the sex analogy or no?
I've already said something completely out of pockets the way that most people play this game, so you might as well.
Okay. It'd be like if you have the chat with your partner and you decide to get a little more adventurous than usual, and you know that you're restrained, you're tied up, the toys have been brought out, and then they decide at the very last minute, I'm gonna go make dinner and eat. You could just hang out here. You know, like, it's that kind of, like, if you're explicitly going through all of the work to hand your players the wish spell to then just dick tease them and take it away, like, that's pretty fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, if that's your goal, or if that's what's happening, you cut that shit out. If it is a symptom of you gave the players a wish spell because you thought it would be cool, and then they used it, and then you panicked because you didn't know how to handle it, I give you a little more leeway in that situation because I understand why you might stress out.
Right.
Especially if, you know, so like, for example, if you usually play for a 4-hour session and then the players use the wish spell at the 2-hour mark, and then whatever they do with the wish spell completely upends everything that was going on, then you as the GM freak out because you're like, what do I do? We still have 2 more hours in the session. And an inexperienced GM is going to go for the monkey's paw to shut down what the players are doing so they can keep the session rolling. An experienced GM is going to go, okay, you could do that, but just so you're clear, we're done for tonight, because now I have to figure out what's going to go on next week, and I'm going to need time to think about that. So session tonight's ending early if you do that.
Look,
you know what I mean?
I am absolutely equal opportunity. If your players do some fuck shittery and you're like, I'm not running this right now, not doing it.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% and you're right. If your player's like, yeah, we're going to the astral plane now, bye. Right? If they do the great joke.
Yeah.
If I was Matt, I'd be like, no.
Like, no, they could do it, but session's over now.
Right? Yeah, that's
like,
what I mean. You can do it.
I got to figure this out.
We're done for the day because I don't even know where to begin with that adventure.
Yeah, what am I supposed to do now? You know, like, that's crazy. So that's another one of those things. The experienced GM is willing to the experienced GM is willing to, in that situation, say, okay, here's the rules though. Here's the deal. The inexperienced GM panics and so tries to keep things going out of this like obligatory sense of we have to or whatever. And you never have to, you know, you like literally never. So Yeah, a lot of it comes down to being comfortable in experience. But again, yes, if you're literally handing out the wish spell so you can just take a shit on their chest afterward, like fucking cut that out. Stop that. Dick move.
Yeah, it just sucks. It just like blows.
I've never heard of that specific scenario, so yeah.
In a separate campaign, I was offered the wish, the one that went nuclear. I was offered the wish spell. I was like, nope.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've just been traumatized to be like, that's literally Mad Max. That's bait.
That's bait. Yeah. Yep. No, I get it. And again, that is an example of where the Mother May I power that the GM has is just being completely abused. And then by abusing it, you have now pushed over the threshold. You've gone to the far end of the spectrum and pushed over into the threshold of now you're just actively ruining like the fun, as it were.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's a spectrum, right? Because the wish spell, you're right in that it is the ultimate Mother May I, in that you have to, there's no way to use that ability without having that negotiation with the GM. But once you let it off, it goes off, the player uses it. You as the GM, now you're sitting in the middle. You perfectly, as soon as the spell goes off, you as the GM land perfectly in the middle of the spectrum. On the left is let the players do whatever the fuck they want. I don't care. On the right is I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that I stop them at every turn and monkey paws the shit out of them. When the spell is cast, you're in the middle. By the end of the negotiation, you want to stay as close to that middle point, that middle part of the spectrum, as you possibly can. Because if you could stay in that middle zone where the player gets their part of the argument and you get your part of the argument, then everybody's happy. If you tilt one too far to one end or the other, that's where things get out of whack. And that's why I say it's a spectrum.
Yeah. I agree.
It's always in degrees.
No, I mean, I totally, yeah. I'm there with you. Because, like, if you as the players are like, can we just not fight the final bad guy with a wish spell? And you're like, no, because I put 20 plus hours in this encounter. I'm going to say, and you as the GM have right to say that a wish spell just doesn't work. But you also have the responsibility to say, I'm going to tell you that doesn't work, but I'm not going to make you waste the spell. So think of something else.
Right. That's where you go into the yes and or the no but scenario, right? That's what that is.
Yeah.
And just as a final curiosity, I think I know the answer to this, but as a curiosity, do you feel like D&D in particular, like talking about 5e, has overcorrected on this problem?
Absolutely. Not even a fucking hesitation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's how I was feeling too.
They are afraid of this mystical boogeyman that barely existed in 5e 2014. It literally barely existed. I can only think of Druid, the Wish Spell, Divine Intervention, and a couple spells like Legend Lore or Find the Path. Which are still in the game. My frustration is with D&D always is that I like to consider myself a pretty even-tempered person. And I think I can see most perspectives, and half the time I just don't get it with 5e. I don't get the thought process.
I honestly think... God, I wish I could remember who said it, but remember that thing that we heard a little while ago where D&D, someone on the D&D design team was like, we don't design for assholes?
I think that was Perkins.
It might have been.
It was either Perkins or Drawcraw. It was one of them.
It might have been Merles, actually.
Ooh.
It might have been Mike Merles. I'm not sure. I don't know. But the thing is like, that idea, we don't design for assholes, it feels like they are these days
actively designing for assholes.
Yeah, they're like capitulating too much to the assholes. Yeah. Like, for the sake of trying to avoid the assholes, it feels like they are trying to design the problem of assholes out of the game.
Right.
Which is like ultimately impossible.
It's fucking impossible. It's just a test of insanity. But also they're manifesting boogeymen based on like Reddit horror stories.
They're like creating the problem. Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, those people fucking exist, but that is a community issue, not a game design issue. That is up to us as the players and game masters to check that shit with a 12 gauge. If you see the weird, like, you know, no, look, if you see people doing the weird thing with the orcs or goblins or whatever, right? They're pulling a goblin slayer.
Yeah.
If you're a GM, you go, abso-fucking-lutely not. No, sir.
Right.
And if you're another player, you stick up for that player and go, no, go away, you weirdo. Banned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it really is manifesting it's like they're creating more boogeymen by trying to avoid the boogeymen. Right? Yes. Like, they are making it's almost like the problem is getting pushed to the surface even more so by trying to tamp the problem down. Right.
They have sort of, they've blown the straw man's head off and went, wait, there's more. And then someone goes, no, there's not. And then they built another one and went, there it is right there. And they blew its head off. Like,
yeah. It's like they're creating both the problem and the solution at the same time or something. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's how, that's pretty much how I was feeling too. I was curious if you were on the same page. Yeah, because you can't design for assholes. Like, it's...
You know what it is too? The reason why I agree is because I have branched out of D&D so much. And I find the conversation stuff fun.
Right, yeah.
It's interesting.
Right, and a little bit of that negotiation can be fun, yeah.
Yeah, like the use of Fabula points is fun. And there has been a time where you've even been like, nah, I'm sorry, man, Fabula's not going to cover that. And I'm like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah, and if you take that Mother May I spectrum and try your best to teeter in the middle of it as much as possible, then it's generally not a problem. Like,
do you know what it is?
Everyone's
genuinely
okay with it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
No, that's all. That was the end of the sentence.
No, so do you know what it is? Genuinely, you talked about this, I think, either last episode or the episode before. When you play other games, you realize that you as a player have way more agency than you do in D&D.
Yes,
you get to dictate so much about your stuff in other games that the places where you have to negotiate don't feel like, but you're taking my only thing away. Please, sir, may I have some more? It's like, all right, well, you know, like Goro's ability with the protect counterattack. You don't really have a say in that. I just do it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna protect. The attack missed anyway. Even numbers, I counterattack.
Yeah.
Which has effectively helped me save Senna how many fucking times? And Irina how many fucking times?
A lot.
So when I go, okay, I want to chase down the Baron, and you're like, I'm sorry, dude, Ultima Point's gonna outrule that. I'm like, all right, fuck it. Yeah. I've done what I wanted to do.
It's like D&D has become so afraid of this problem, and maybe I would argue maybe D&D's always been afraid of this problem a little bit to a point. Well, maybe not in like first edition, but I feel like since third edition, it's been afraid of this problem.
I don't know. So I haven't read fourth edition, but fourth edition has so many powers that just say, yeah, you do a cool thing. It seemed like fourth edition didn't give a fuck.
Well, so fourth edition, a lot of people have said that the thing that's kind of interesting about fourth edition is so tightly designed that fourth edition can basically play itself without a GM.
Interesting.
Because particularly when you're talking about combat, because the the balance of powers versus enemy abilities versus enemy types and the stuff that they can do and the order of operations and how you use their abilities is so tight that there's like almost zero Mother May I involved at all. But what was a lot of people's criticism of 4th edition, it felt too much like an MMO, too much like a video game, because obviously a video game by design has to have zero Mother May I, because you can only do what the designers allow you, or I guess depending on how you phrase it, it's 100% Mother May I, depending on how you look at it. But the point is, a video game has to be on the far end of the spectrum because there is no negotiating with the code of the game, right? Mm-hmm. And 4th edition, a lot of people said, felt too video gamey in its design.
Tell that to a Bethesda game.
Well, you know.
No, you cannot teleport. Best I can do, wooden plate in a corner of a wall.
You know what I mean, though.
I do.
So it's like, yeah, when you push so far in the other direction where you try and avoid the Mother May I 100%, you get 4th edition, which again has really cool elements about it, but people said, why is it so video gamey? You know, so you have to, again, don't design for assholes and accept that idea into your heart a little bit to a certain degree and just try your best to sort of walk that tightrope between you have to ask for permission and you can do the cool thing. You know?
So you know what's funny? I'm going to bring up a Dune reference. We talked about people being assholes in the PvP at the end game, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I read, one server has just enacted a full, like, policing system where the strongest guild, they're called, the OP separated them into lions, hyenas, and vultures. So vultures are like small guilds or you and me, like just going out to get some spice. Vultures are the hyenas are like the smaller to medium-sized guilds who would pick on the smallest people.
Yeah.
And the biggest guilds are called the lions. And one of his talking points was like, if you're a vulture, get prepared to get ganked. It's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're a pack of hyenas and you start griefing people like relentlessly, the lions are going to come down on you. And they're just going to ruin your time until you quit the server. That's just how it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, that is Funcom. And to be fair, they need to, fix their shit. Absolutely. But to some point, the community is taking care of the problem in its own weird little fucked up way. But it is trying.
Right. Yeah. And some of that, I think, is what Funcom wanted to a degree. You know, like, I think they do want a little bit of that element of big guilds sort of policing the situation. I do think that was what they want to a point. The problem is, it's hard to facilitate that like on every server and stuff. So it's again, a delicate balance. But yeah, it is kind of a similar thing. The GM is the lion always. And yeah, they have to walk that tightrope. Or I guess the GM and the game in tandem with each other are the lion in this example. Probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is disappointing to see D&D be so afraid of this problem. Particularly because D&D is the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the flagship game,
it's the Titan of industry.
Yeah, it's the Titan of the industry. It's the main flagship thing. So it's a little to see them again, to see them designed for assholes. That's really what. Yeah, it's literally
what they did. Yeah, they designed for assholes. They designed against asshole
like they're
DMs.
Afraid of the assholes. Yeah,
and to a similar degree, designed against asshole players. Like,
yeah.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah, but I don't know. We'll see. D&D is kind of in an interesting spot right now because it's a lot of fresh blood is going to probably be coming in.
Likely, yeah.
A lot of the main big boys have left the scene. So we'll see what happens. Should be interesting. But also, I've got my eyes on Darrington Press now that Jawcraw and Perkins are over there because I'm very curious to see what the hell they're actually going to do over there.
That is wild, yeah.
Like, what is their job going to be, We don't know.
I'm fascinated to find out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm making up words. Been us. What? The episode's over. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, bud.
The episode is over. And if you made it all the way to the end, give us the old follow on the social medias down in the description. Chanel?
Yeah.
Chanel?
Yeah.
Always eat your vegetables, kids.
We like tomatoes.
I like all vegetables.
My stepmom really likes the like Korean style fried cauliflower with the gochujang sauce, and that shit is awesome.
Not bad.
Oh, yeah. It slaps so hard, dude. Yeah. There's some in the fridge. I'm gonna go eat it right now.
Okay, you do that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hit the button now.
All right.